Hello everybody, it's Hater. Welcome back to another Destiny 2 build video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a build that actually isn't void for once. Nope. We're going to be talking about a Solar Titan build that utilizes the Path of the Burning Steps exotic boots, Hammer Strike, and Font of Might to make all of our weapons deal over 128% more damage. So if you guys are into that kind of thing, make sure to give the video a like. Let me know what you guys think about the build down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me over on my Twitch for more variety, and there will be a dim loadout link down in the description for the build in this video. Alright guys, the way that this build is going to work is we're combining a bunch of damage modifiers all at the exact same time to make our weapons deal insane amounts of damage. Starting things off with the Path of the Burning Steps exotic boots, its exotic perk Firewalker says Solar Final Blows periodically grant you an escalating bonus to weapon damage. You are harder to slow or freeze with stasis, and when you break out, you take no damage from doing so, creating a burst of solar energy around yourself. Basically what this means is that getting kills with anything that is solar energy will give us stacks of bonus weapon damage, starting 20% at ×1, then scaling all the way up to 40% at ×4. This is going to be our main empowering buff of the build. If you guys don't know what that means, I made a video covering it in the past, but to sum it up quickly, there are 4 types of damage modifiers that stack in Destiny 2. Empowering buffs, damage buffs that empower the Guardian themselves, debuffs, negative buffs applied to the enemies that make them take more damage, weapon perks, damage increasing perks on weapons, examples are Rampage, Swashbuckler, and Honed Edge ×4. Then the final category are outliers that don't fit in any of the previous ones. These are things like the mod Font of Might, Lucky Pants, and Disruption Break. Now, to reiterate Path of the Burning Steps, it is going to be our main empowering buff at 40%. And something people will comment if I don't say it right now is yes, if we don't have 4 stacks of Firewalker, a buff like Banner Shield, which is 40%, will in fact override it if it is present. For the next buff that we'll be using with Path of the Burning Steps, it's gonna be the Hammer Strike melee attack on Top Tree Solar Titan. This is going to allow us to shoulder charge an enemy and apply a 30% damage debuff. For solo content especially, this is going to be the bread and butter main source of damage, because all we have to do is stack Firewalker up to 4, desirably, then Hammer Strike an enemy to stack both the 30 and 40% damage bonuses together at the exact same time to make the poor receiving enemy take 82% more damage multiplicatively. To then stack onto this even further than 82% more, what we can use is the mod Font of Might. This is going to give our weapons that match our subclass type 25% more damage whenever we pick up an elemental well matching the same energy. Meaning in this case, for something like Sleeper Simulant, a very high tier damage exotic weapon, when we have ×4 Firewalker, Hammer Strike, and Font of Might at the exact same time, it's going to make Sleeper Simulant deal 128% more damage. That doesn't really sound like a lot on paper, but trust me, it adds up overall. What I really like about this build though is just how versatile it is with other team-based buffs. For example, if we're bringing this into the new Vow of the Disciple raid, more often than not guys, we're going to have one of our teammates be a hunter, and they're going to be using the reworked Tether. Now Tether is going to apply a 30% debuff to an enemy just like our Hammer Strike. Same goes for the Divinity Trace Rifle. This basically takes the stress off of debuffing a boss with Hammer Strike to then save it for healthier enemies or when other debuffs are down. Then in the final boss fight, when fighting Rolk especially, it's not usually possible to use buffs like Well of Radiance or Banner to DPS him because everyone has to move. That's where Path of the Burning Steps can take over and provide that buff to yourself, bumping up our overall damage output. Now that we've gone over how this build actually works, let's talk about what we're gonna use to complement it. This is going to be the weapons and the mods. Starting off with weapons, we're aiming to use a solar energy weapon as our main mobbing tool to get Firewalker going, and there is definitely an arsenal of weapons to choose from. For budget, these are the new players that just picked up the game. Once you've gotten a few exotic engrams just by playing the game itself, one of the weapons that will pair extremely well with this build is the Sunshot hand cannon and its exotic perks Sunburn and Sunblast, shooting explosive rounds that then cause enemies to explode. You can also take this into the Psyops battlegrounds when looking to farm out the newer gear because of Unstoppable hand cannon being available in the artifact. Another super fun weapon to pair with this for players that don't prefer to use Sunshot is the Tiku's Divination exotic bow, marking enemies, then causing them to explode. But for my personal favorite weapon to pair with this, and what I would recommend everyone farm out, especially this season, is the legendary auto rifle, the Summoner. This is going to be coming from Trials of Osiris. Now, before I hear, Trials, you don't really need to stress it that heavily, I promise. Because what you can just aim for is a decent roll through engrams, not, going straight for the Adept one itself. But if you're like me, the Adept Summoner is going to be the end-all be-all perfect weapon. As for what rolls to go for on the Summoner, without a doubt, the perk combination of Overflow with Rampage is going to be bliss. Overflow doubles that magazine after picking up Special or Heavy, then Rampage increases the damage upwards to 33% at 3 kills with it, stacking with everything we've mentioned earlier in this video. For the more obvious weapons to pair with this build, of course it's going to involve Galahorn, and it's going to involve Sleeper Simulant as mentioned before. But if you're lucky and pull the new Linear Fusion Rifle from Vow of the Disciple, you can get 4th times the Charm and High Impact Reserves as a perk combination with it to pair extremely well with your Sunshot or Tiku's Divination. Finishing things off, let's talk about the mods that make the build. And before we get on to where we're going to be putting them, we're going to need at least 2 armor pieces Solar, and we're going to need at least 2 armor pieces Void. Starting off on my helmet, I have it as Solar, and I'm using the mod Well of Life. This is going to allow us to gain 10 seconds of constant healing after we pick up a Solar Elemental Well. It is super helpful pairing it with Well of Tenacity on a build that is not primarily Void. Next to it though, I'm using Solar Siphon so that rapid solar weapon final blows will create an orb of power, then Harmonic Siphon so rapid final blows with damage matching my subclass type will also create an orb of power. I'm mainly going to be using these so that I can synergize with mods on my boots, but it is still definitely a slot you can put your ammo finders into. Moving on over to the arms, I have these as Void and I'm using the mod Reaping Wellmaker at the end of it. So after we use our class ability, in this case the Barricade, our next kill is going to create a Void Elemental Well. We're going to be using that Void Elemental Well later on when we get to the chest piece, but next to it I'm using a rocket launcher loader and the mod Bolstering Detonation so that I gain class ability energy after hitting enemies with my grenade. Moving on over to the chest piece, as I told you before, we are using Reaping Wellmaker so that we can use the Void Well on Well of Tenacity. This is going to give us 50% damage reduction for 5 seconds after we pick it up, and we can gain this every single time Reaping Wellmaker comes off cooldown. I really like using this with Well of Life so that we have a really strong uptime on survivability. Next to it though, I am using a Void Resistance mod and Thermoshock Plating so that I take 25% reduced damage from all 3 element typing besides Stasis. Moving on over to the Path of the Burning Steps, I have them as Solar and I'm using Font of Might at the end of it from the artifact so that it's 1 cost instead of 4. This is going to allow us to, as I mentioned before, pick up a Elemental Well that matches our subclass type, and then it's going to grant our weapons that match that energy type 25% more damage for 10 seconds. Then I'm using a rocket launcher scavenger from the artifact and a recuperation. So orbs of power I'm creating from the siphon mods in my helmet will heal me instantaneously. Then finally, moving on over to the class item, this is also going to be solar, and we're using explosive well maker at the end of it. This is going to create a solar elemental well from explosive damage kills from any source. This could be my grenade launcher, my grenades, my hammers, anything that is considered explosive damage will create that solar well. This is mainly going to be the resource that we use to get Well of Life going. And next to it, I'm using 2 bomber mods so that I can reduce my grenade cooldown when using my class ability. This is going to help synergize with Reaping Wellmaker so that I'm gaining grenade energy on top of the barricade and the void elemental well. But anyways, guys, that is going to be the build for today's video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. This build is absolutely insane and I am in love with it. And it's really nice to actually make something that isn't void for once. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.